Alright, so for Module 6, Lesson 5, we are really starting to get into arrays. So this says to circle groups of 4, then draw the triangles in 2 equal rows. So you just come in here and circle groups of 4, and then draw them on the rows. And remember that rows go back and forth like this, okay? So we just come over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and really when we're doing this you want to make sure that they line up with each other, going up and down kind of like this. Moving on to number 2, it says circle groups of 2. So of course you would just come in, circle groups of 2, then redraw them in rows and columns. Okay, so remember that rows go back and forth, columns go up and down. So go ahead and pause and take care of this problem. Alright, this is exactly the same, except it's groups of 3. So each of these lines needs to have a group of 3 hearts on it, as well as these columns over here. Moving on to number 4, count the objects in the arrays from left to right by rows and columns. As you count, circle the rows and then the columns. So I'm going to show you how to do that real quick. So it says by rows and by columns, okay? So first we're going to do rows. So once again, that's going across. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then by columns, 1, 2. And of course you would just do the same exact thing over here, going by rows and then by columns. Alright, so this simply says to redraw the circles and stars in problem 4, so up here, as columns of 2, okay? So what you would do is you'd come in here and you'd draw them in columns of 2. So remember, columns go up and down. So this is an example of a column of 2. You can tell that it's going up and down just like that, but I need to make it match what we see up here. So I would need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns of 2. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? And then you would simply come over here and do the same thing with the stars. Alright, so this problem right here says to just draw an array with 15 triangles. It doesn't really tell us how to do that. So we can kind of do it however we want. So if you wanted to go rows of 3, columns of 5, that would be fine. Or rows of 5, columns of 3, that would be fine as well. Then when we come over here to number 7, it just says show a different array. So you would just do whichever type of array you did not do in number 6. So it needs to be different, not the same, okay? So moving on to the homework, once again, if you are in class, you need to pause and head back to your desk. So this says to circle groups of 5, then draw the clouds into 2 equal rows. So we need to find little groups of 5 over here, and then draw each of those groups into the rows over here. So of course here would be your second group, okay? Moving on to number 2, circle groups of 4, then redraw in rows and columns. So this is all pretty straightforward. Number 3 is exactly the same. Groups of 4, redraw in 4 rows, and then columns as well. Then, of course, count the objects in the arrays from left to right by rows and columns, so very similar to what we were doing in the problem set. You simply count the rows and then count the columns, and you would do that over here as well. Then you come down here and redraw them as columns of 3. So remember, columns go up and down, so you would need 1, 2, 3 columns going up and down for each of these. Then of course, draw an array with 20 triangles. So you would have your rows, and you would have your columns, and then you would just show a different way when you do this problem right here.